Welcome back to the Global Business Report here on Horizon News. This past holiday season, Americans increased their online spending to a record $222 billion during the holiday period. That's between November the 1st to December the 31st. A lot of that was helped by, and this of course is according to Adobe Analytics, a lot of this was helped by discounts. As we take a look at some of the peak discount figures for a number of categories of items that were sold. Electronics, 31% compared to 25% in 2022. Toys, 28%, and apparel at 24%. That is a massive number. We're going to be talking about that, plus the latest rich list for Africa, where there's been a bit of a shakeup according to Forbes with, there it is, Aliko Dangote falling to second place, being displaced by Johan Rupert and family, of course, from South Africa. Joining us to discuss that, because she does have a lot of wealthy clients at the Alpha African Advisory, is the CEO, Sanyade Okoli, who we haven't seen in quite a while. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Great to have you on. I guess starting with the U.S., what do you make of that number, that shopping number? What does it tell you about the U.S. economy?
Okay, so it's not entirely surprising. As you said, it's an increase of 4.9% this year versus 3% last year. But the trend has been upward. Of course, the biggest jump was in 2020 COVID year, where online sales grew by over 30%.
Wow.
But the growth had been tapering. So really, we're looking at a 3% growth in 2022 versus a 5% growth in, well, 4.9 to be specific, in 2023. But you've picked up on one of the drivers. So essentially, retailers were not confident about the market and the level of demand that they will see. So they used two main levers. One were discounts, and the other was more flexible payment methods. And what I like about that is, you know, this whole thing about being responsive to what the market is telling you. Yeah. And as a result, they've enjoyed the benefits.
Speaking of benefits, are you a frequent online shopper? Is convenience top of the line for you for making purchases online? In
answer to the first question, yes and no. When I'm abroad, I do use it a lot. And I must admit, Amazon is a particular favorite, and I'll say why, because it speaks to your point. Yeah. But unfortunately, when I am in Nigeria, no. So I'll tell you why. Yes, Amazon, the convenience. Being able to get you, especially Amazon Prime, being able to get your goods very quickly, sometimes same-day service, is a winner. And this was even, I was in the US in December. So this was Christmas season, and there were some items I could order in the morning and get later that day. You know, you can't really beat that. It certainly beats traipsing up and down in the cold.
Right.
Here in Nigeria, less so for a few reasons. I must admit, security is less of a concern for me. I know that it is the biggest impediment on the continent for why people may not use online shopping as much as one would expect. But two things based on experience. One, where I would call it mis-selling, where what you receive looks very different from what you saw in the picture. Yes. And two is the logistics in terms of how long it will take me to receive the goods. You know, if it's 3-4 days, you know, I may as well just nip to the shop.
And buy yourself.
But what I think is also interesting here, certainly I can speak for Nigeria, is where online shopping may not have achieved what people would have hoped, what we do get a lot more of is what I'd call Instagram or WhatsApp shopping. Okay. Where you need something. To be honest, I can't remember the last time I went online per se, but I would go on Instagram and do a search, and you're looking at actual photos or videos of the products. And some service providers are flexible enough to say, you know, we will send it to you. And if you're not happy, you can give the same driver to send it back. So I think that the market is moving in that direction.
Now, on the security side, Google Pay, as I'm not sure if you've gotten this prompt, but when I'm paying online, it says, would you like to store your card details on on their cloud services. Thereby, next time I want to pay for something, it's just one click. Out of fear, I just haven't done it. So I'll go through the laborious process of putting in my card details every time. But what does you mentioned security? What does security rank for you? I guess maybe here as opposed to.
So I think here I must admit I would not save my data because yes, security would be. For day-to-day transactions, certainly I would look to ensure that it is a secure site that I am paying through. And also here you have the option of doing bank transfers rather than using your card. Actually, one area I do buy online are flight tickets. But again, I'm more likely to do an online bank transfer than to use my card. But it really depends on the service provider. I wouldn't give a blanket statement.
Yeah. Okay, far be it for me to compare the U.S., multi-trillion-dollar economy, and Nigeria, but or rather even the continent of Africa. We've got volumes, but we don't have as far as value compared to the West. What's holding back higher values for these transactions? Is it more inclusive economic growth and basically building wealth for people? What's holding us back?
Well, first of all, when it comes to the online shopping, as I said, the three biggest impediments are security, and in this order: security, the
logistics,
cost, logistics, and people still wanting to touch and feel. But you've got to remember that people cannot spend what they do not have.
Right.
So depending on what is happening with the economy, depending on what's happening, from an inflation standpoint, and the disposable income versus what the cost, be it online or brick and mortar, it really would be dependent on what the economy is doing.
Yeah. We covered this. The CBN has kind of deferred to the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, to cover cryptocurrency, because the SEC has guidelines in place. I think I've asked you about crypto in the past. Do you think years from now people will be talking about using crypto for actually making purchases? Or where do you think that's going to go?
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
I don't see it being ubiquitous immediately. But if you think of the adopters of cryptocurrency, they tend to be the younger demographic. And increasingly, they are also going to be the retailers.
Yeah.
And so the more they're using it in their own personal lives, the more they would also accept it as payment for goods and services. So over time, I do expect that.
What about plastic cards? Do you think, just to get a little sci-fi here, that one day plastic cards will be gone and you're either using your eyeballs or, I don't know, a chip in your fingernail to make payments?
Here on the continent or globally?
Well, that's a good, both.
I expect to see higher global adoption than here on the continent for various reasons. One is because of some of the infrastructure challenges, people will not feel complete. If you think about it, right now, sometimes you try and use your card, it doesn't work, and then they say do an online transfer, that doesn't always work.
Yeah.
So people would feel more vulnerable if they're having to use biometrics in one form or the other because of the higher risk of failure. But another thing which should not be discounted is actually religious perspectives. Because some people do feel that it relates to the whole 999 and mark of the beast. You may laugh, but mark of the beast.
Yeah.
And as you know, religion, here on the continent, we are still more religious in other parts. So it would be a factor.
I always think of the mark of the beast and monetary policy. It cracks me up. But let's talk billionaires. I guess according to Forbes, for the Forbes list for Africa, Aliko Dangote being knocked off number one by Johannes Rupert. I guess what do you make of that shakeup there?
It's not at all surprising, truth be said, because if you think about it from an FX rate standpoint alone, so the Naira is essentially halved in value over the year. So a lot of his Naira assets would have experienced this, significant depreciation. So it's not a surprise. Interestingly, Mr. Rupert's net worth did decrease a bit, as well, but just not as much
the same rate as
Dangote.
I want to ask you something. There's a since we're talking tech here, and it's our eye on tech, the top 10 wealthiest people in the world. I think we have the list. Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, there they are. 8 out of 10 of these individuals, unfortunately no women, but they're all pure play technology. I mean, only Bernard Arnault is in luxury goods, and Warren Buffett, who is he's a conglomerate, are the non-tech guys. The other guys are pure technology. And you come to the top 10 list for Africa, and it's commodities and industrials and stuff like that. What's the takeaway for you from that?
Well, we're work in progress.
Yeah?
We're just not there yet in terms of having as many large tech companies. Again, if you look at the tech entrepreneurs here, again on the continent, a lot of them are younger. Some of these businesses, the world's richest, these companies have been going for decades now, not years.
Right.
So it will take a bit of time for us to see that shift in terms of who's making our top richest.
Well, getting more women on the list. You think we can see
we
women
absolutely need more women. I think we might have to do another show as to explore the reasons why we don't have more women on the top 10 list.
But do you think that technology will be the driver? So I know you're saying Africa is work in progress, but will that medium? I've had you on to talk about AI, crypto, and so many other things. Is that going to be the driver going forward to get more folks on that?
I think it has to be, simply because technology is not just today, but it's also tomorrow. It's the future. And if you're looking at creation of value, a lot of it stems from growth and where people see growth coming from. And technology is this one big sector where people see growth.
But you see, I thank you for bringing up the currency devaluation challenge. As long as that keeps going, then how do you place that with the wealth growth if you still got devaluations that happen every so often due to economic?
So the key question is, what needs to happen?
Right.
For for devaluation not to be the norm.
So it's I guess inclusive economic growth, healthy economic growth that can or buffers that can withstand that.
Healthy. If you think about it, if you're looking at sort of interest rate or inflation parity, you need to be growing at a fast enough rate.
Yeah.
If your inflation is higher than, say, the US, then your currency, from a pure economic standpoint, does need to depreciate if your goods are not going to become more expensive by default.
Right.
So, and there are lots of other people, even here in this market, who says, what's wrong with the depreciation of the Naira? From an economic standpoint.
Right. When you
it
think
might
about
not be,
China
it might not be so great when you and I are traveling, or people who have FX, obligations. But is it actually as bad? I think part of the thing is for it to be controlled.
Right.
For it, a 50% half
is big.
A 50% drop. It's huge.
Yeah.
But if it's almost predictable and in line with what people expect, and people can plan for it, and it's not because the economy is not doing well, but it's based on economic fundamentals,
then it's manageable.
Yes.
Sanyade Okoli, CEO, Alpha African Advisor. Good to see you again. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your time.